All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Mo Money, Mo Problems podcast, the podcast dedicated to the trials, triumphs, and insights of the green industry. I'm your host, Matt Foreman, and today we've got Melissa Langer with us, founder of Melissa Langer Landscape Architecture out in Southern California. Melissa, so pumped to have you here today.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are officially our first landscape architecture guest. So talk to me. What is that? Because it's not necessarily landscaper. It's so much more. It has a lot more planning involved, and obviously, you have to be an expert. So I would love to hear, like, what is a landscape architect?
So that's a great question. I went to a lot of school and took a lot of tests to get that title. So it's a little bit more than being a landscape designer, but I'm basically on the planning end. So I do everything from meeting with clients at the beginning, going over what they want, and coming up with usually it's concept drawings and then construction drawings that they can then take to a contractor and have the whole project built. So it's really more about like the beginning process of anything outdoor related. And with my license, I'm able to do a little bit more than if I was unlicensed. Like I can submit plans to the cities and yeah, I just have a little bit more freedom with my license. So
Awesome. Okay, so I'm really interested in, well, how do you get work? Like, does that come to you from just a property owner? Does it come to you from a business? Do you go out and find it? Like, what does a typical just job look like?
well, I get a lot of work from referrals, which is awesome. That's kind of like how I try to run my business is people see, a neighbor's like, "Oh, your yard you got redone. It looks awesome." And then my name is passed along. Because I do commercial and residential work, so it's kind of a mix of both. And so in the same instance, like I work with a lot of the same architects or builders, and we kind of all just pass each other's contact information along and work together on a lot of projects. So kind of have a good little base of people that I really trust to work with. And yeah, just as simple as to like I've even had jobs where people are walking down a street and see a yard and leave a note in the mailbox and then they get in contact with me that way. So it's really just a
Nice.
lot of like word of mouth referrals.
So, how did you get into this? Like, what drew you to just the outdoor industry?
Well, my dad has a business. He's a masonry landscape contractor. So I was kind of always around it growing up. But, when he was taking me to job sites when I was little, I was like, I could never do this. Like, this sounds boring. And then when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do outside of college, I thought graphic design was it. I love art, I love being creative. Looked into it a little bit more and said, you know what, that really doesn't sound like it's for me. And I talked to a landscape architect at a party one day and I was like, you know what, that sounds so awesome. I love the outside, I love plants. And then that led me to take a plant ID class at the local community college and a couple drafting classes. And then I was just sold. I said, I'm all in. And then I started my 10-year school career to,
10
get to
years.
the point
Jeez.
where yeah, it was a long haul. I did a lot of community college. I did actual college. So yeah, it's been a long journey to get to my official title, but I've loved every step of the way, and it's been yeah like a interesting, good journey.
Awesome. So, can you, if you remember, can you take me back to your first job, your first client? Like, how did you get them? What was it? What did that look like for you?
So I'm lucky because like I said, my dad is kind of in the industry too. So he's the one who kind of gave me, I guess, my first job doing a design. I also worked at a nursery. So my boss was really sweet. She'd always like, if people needed extra help, she'd say, hey, go do like a consult at their house. So it kind of started really small, just like hand drawings and really, really small projects, just people that needed, maybe more plant advice than anything else. And then I started doing, a little bit more in-depth projects, but yeah, I think the first one was passed on to me from my dad. I definitely didn't know what I was doing like I do now, but he kind of helped guide me and tell me what I needed to do. And that was before I had really that much like educational experience. So, yeah, just kind of like thrown to the wolves, I guess you could say, and figuring it out as I go. But I've definitely come a long way since that first, you know, hand drawn little plan I did. I don't even remember exactly what the job was, but I remember it was like just a small little yard. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And are you, still primarily, like, hand drawing, or is that moved to, like, software or
No,
anything like that?
yeah, I use a lot of computer software. The 3D
Okay.
rendering programs are awesome now and they're so fast. So yeah, I use those a lot. AutoCAD, Photoshop, SketchUp. That helps clients really visualize things because not everybody can read a plan. So sometimes I have to make it 3D so people can understand. But I miss the hand drawn days, but it's definitely slower and more labor intensive. So the
Yeah.
computer programs are, I don't know, they're just really convenient. So
Yeah, I love seeing, like, the hand-drawn stuff. It's almost like a relic at this point. It
it
just
is.
looks so good. It's artwork, it really is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
are you like, for the 3D renderings, do you still have the full-length blueprint rollouts, or is that just like a PDF
Oh yeah.
file nowadays?
No, I show up with my physical papers and, have
It's a showstopper.
yeah, yeah, and I that's one thing sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I'm coloring in Photoshop today," and I get to make the 2D plans look, presentable to people
Yeah,
and my husband always tells me, "It's your artwork. It's like beautiful
yeah.
stuff," and I have a lot of fun doing it, so.
Good, good. So, whenever you, like, create this project and envision it and you hand it off, what is your involvement at that point? Like, are you still kind of around during the build? Do you just show up at the end? What's that typically look like for
Yeah.
you?
It's a wide range, I leave it up to the client. I definitely can be there all the way till the project is ended. I can be there when the plants are there, checking in. Or some people choose to just, our relationship kind of ends as soon as I hand off the plans and then they work with their contractor. Sometimes
Mm,
contractors will call me and be like, for instance, this plant is not available. Do you have another one to substitute? So it really varies. There's, such a wide range. I do enjoy seeing projects get built all the way through. I think it's so rewarding and exciting. And then I get to see the people's reactions at the end when everything's
mhm.
all done. Or they have me over later, for a drink at night to see how the lighting turned out and everything. So yeah, it just really, really depends on the client's needs. But I like being there through the whole process.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, obviously, you mentioned your dad's in the space. I feel like with all the landscapers I talk to, obviously, not all of them offer like in-house designs and renderings like that. Is that something that you kind of target? Like, do you target other landscapers that might be maybe not needing it in-house necessarily, but like any sort of partnerships? Like, what are your connections to other landscapers, if any? Like, how do they find?
So I work with my dad and brother. He's part of the business he's taking over. I work with them all the time. We, work on projects and they still call me almost every day. I call them too. And then I have a lot of relationships with other contractors too that we, if a project is right for one of them versus my family, we all kind of like exchange the referrals if that makes sense. So and again, like I said earlier, there's also architects and builders, so it's kind of like the whole industry. There, I have a good little group of people that we all kind of refer each other, and a lot of contractors want a plan these days because clients can tend to change their mind a bunch, and the budget's kind of all over the place. So
Mhm.
I have one contractor who he says, "Nope, call Melissa. I'm not doing any work until there's an actual plan." And, a lot of contractors do recognize the value in doing a plan before because you're just saving a bunch of headaches down the road when, things get installed and then the homeowner says, you know what, I don't like that, or they kind of do it backwards. So
Yeah. What does that process look like in terms of like getting started? How long does something take? Obviously, I know it depends on the scale of the project, but what's the typical turnaround time? What is your involvement beyond just the actual creating part?
So typically I'll meet with the client on site. I always offer like a free consultation. I think it's good to just, if I can physically go out there, meet with them. They can tell me what they like, what they want, if their exact specific needs. If they don't have any, that's totally fine. Then I go back to my office to come up with a little proposal for them based on how long, I think the project will take. And then from there, it just depends how busy I am. Like right now, I'm pretty busy. So I'm telling them usually about a month before I can get started. But once we get started, it's quicker. So usually within like 2 weeks, I will have a set of concept drawings for them. And then we'll meet again and go over those. And those are kind of like just spatial layouts and materials, no, not like the fine details yet. And we just have a conversation about what they like. Usually there's three options and they can pick from, I like this about this one and this about this one. So we're really on the same page and their final design doesn't come out with something that they're surprised by or they didn't want. In a perfect world, that would be the case all the time. Sometimes there's, issues, but I try to keep just as open from the get go so that there's just a smooth process. And then we meet again after I have the construction documents that are done. And then I tell them those are yours. You can take them to whatever contract you would like. And if they want me to be more involved, I offer, additional services for site observation legally, I have to call it. So it's just me, you know, then it would be them kind of interacting with their contractor. If they do want help with their contractor, I'm available because a lot of times people, have a budget, of course. So it's kind of important that I'm available if they say, hey, we're this much over budget. What can we do to bring it down? Then I can come back and say, okay, well, I think if we change this material or eliminate this object, so I'm able to help with that. And then yeah, it depends how long the contractor is going to take, but sometimes projects start right away, sometimes they start, a year later. So I have a couple projects I've been working on for 2 years, and then I have some
Wow.
projects that I'm done with within a month. So again, a very wide range, which I like. It keeps it interesting. Sometimes it's fun to just do quick ones and move on. And sometimes it's fun to just really develop long relationships with people and be a really big part of the project. So
Awesome. So like a 2-year project, is that a live project, meaning it's like being built and you're still collaborating, or is that just like, hey, we're not even breaking ground until we get to a point?
yeah, California can be a
Sure.
little slow with their process. So those longer projects are typically ones that plans were submitted up to, 2 years ago and are just now being
Goodness gracious.
built. Yes, it's a little out of hand, but it's just a part of living here and a reason that having my license is so valuable because I can actually work on those projects,
Mhm.
which is cool for me. So
Yeah. Wow. So what does a 2-year project typically look like? I'm just so interested in, I guess I don't understand fully the red tape of California, but like that seems like quite a long time. So like what is that kind of
yeah.
project?
So that specific one is a residential project, just completely ground up, brand new. It was an empty lot before, multi-million dollar home, gorgeous. But yeah, just a lot of permits and red tape to get
Mm,
through. You know, After COVID, things kind of got a little slower and weirder, and I don't think they really got back to a super efficient pace. But each project's different. That's just one circumstance where I'm not sure of like exactly all the logistics because I'm kind of close with the builder. So she hasn't told me all the details, but yeah, just that's an exceptional one that took much longer than I think anybody anticipated. But yeah, it mostly comes down to permits and all the permits that you apply for. Like there's coastal development permits that take much longer and much more stringent. So I kind of have to be familiar with a little bit of that process, but it goes far beyond the landscape. That's, engineering and soils and all that stuff too. So
gotcha. Gotcha. So you said that's a residential project, and I know from, and this is specifically on your website as well, but you worked in Parks and Public Works. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. So
Cool.
I needed to work for a firm in order to get my license. There's a couple
Okay.
ways you can do it, but I found that to be the easiest to get like my bachelor's degree and then go work for a company. And I went to college with my best friend. She's now my sister-in-law, funny enough. But she kind of got me the job. And yeah, I was there for a little over 2 years. And that company was really cool. It was up in Orange County. So I lived a little different place for a while, which was fun. But yeah, they were just parks and public works. So very, very different than residential. You're working with grants, you're working with really like zero maintenance parks that don't have a lot of money, medians, in Irvine. So very, very different than residential work, which I think was good for me. I remember designing my first parking lot, or excuse me, like median, in the like a fast thoroughway. And I designed it all cute, and my supervisor goes, I didn't really tell you, but you got to think people are going 60 miles an hour on this road. So we're not going to see these like cute little designs you did. You kind of have to do more mass plantings. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it was good. And I learned how to work with other engineers and, architects, and work closely with the city requirements. So it was a really good experience for me, and it taught me how to design like very, very large spaces. So you want to make sure that the maintenance is a big one too. You want all low maintenance, basically plant things and they're still going to look good in 5 years. Yeah, and working with the grants was interesting too, and you kind of had to do cost estimates to see where your project fell. So it was good, but some of the projects were just massive and huge, and you're working with CAD files that there's like just a huge, huge area and so many people involved. So it was good to see how they organized everything, because it was a pretty big team there. I'm just myself, but over there, I think now the company has grown even more. Yeah, so it was just a good experience to kind of work a little different angle.
Mhm.
I think it was valuable.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what do you find is the biggest difference between residential and these commercial and public works sort of projects? You mentioned things like you have to take into consideration speeding cars, and maybe you don't need the fine details of a residential one, but are those projects easier? Are they just more ridiculous because of the red tape? Like, do you have a preference on one versus the other?
Say that if you're in the like high-end residential design, that's the most fun. Those are the most creative, where the clients like, I have a pretty good budget. Let's just make my yard look awesome.
Mhm.
Where more of the commercial projects are, what's the most functional? What's the best budget wise? There's a lot more
Mm.
constraints, and not necessarily less room for creativity, but it's not exactly like just go crazy and we'll make something wild. It's a little bit more structured. And then when you get into like, I do a lot of, they're like mixed use buildings. I work with an architect, and those are just, you gotta check the city boxes, and most people don't. They're like, I don't mind what it looks like. Obviously, you're gonna make it look good, but the creativity is not the focus of those jobs. It's simply like getting the requirements done that the city has, whichever city, every city down here is a little different. Some are more strict than others, but yeah, sometimes those projects are a little more, just black and white, not so creative. Just get it done essentially.
And forgive my ignorance and just how California operates, but how do you keep up with the laws, the limitations, and do you often have to push back on projects from clients that want a certain thing and you have to come back and be like, find out the state says we can't do that.
So a lot of it is just trial and error. Luckily, when you are working with cities, they have comment response people that go through your plans and send corrections and say, this is what you need to do. And they're usually really helpful. So I'm kind of annoying sometimes, and I'll email them just so I know exactly
Oh, it's
what's going
Melissa
on.
again.
Yeah, no, I think probably. But yeah, it's just kind of everything changes so quickly. It's really hard to keep up with it.
Mm,
There's things that, just the other day I learned they're changing the permit to go from per building to a square footage fee, which is crazy. That's like a really big difference. So you just kind of hear word of mouth through other people in the industry, or you hear when you get a comment back that says, hey, you can't do that. And it does put limitations on projects. Like in California, a really, really big one is having bioretention basins. And this is for residential projects mostly, where building anything new, they want all the water to stay on site. So That means you have these big, ugly, expensive places where all the water goes. I can make them look a little okay with some plant material, but most people are not happy about that because it's a
Yeah.
huge part of your yard. And there's really no way around it. You just have to do it. And, that's part of the cost of living here. I think it's just knowing that if you're going to build anything, there's pretty strict regulations, and not all of them make sense, but, I think they're in place for the greater good of, like, you know, they want to make sure that there's enough trees, that your water's not going into the, like, it makes sense, but sometimes it feels a little over the top. So you just kind of have to do it and tell the client, these are what the rules are, and there's not really any way around them. So here's how we can make it look okay, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure if you live there, you're, probably not getting too much pushback from the homeowners when you say, "Hey, there's some regulations in place." I would imagine most people understand that at that point.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty well known. Even people who move here from out of state, I think they're not too shocked by it.
Right, right. I'm super interested in what does the market look like for landscape architects? Like, are there a ton of you guys? Is the market really saturated? Are there not enough of you? Are people pounding on your door and be like, "Help, I need someone to help design things"? What's it look like in your area?
So I think there's probably a good amount in San Diego. Overall, I don't think there's too many of us. Like, my license number is pretty low, which is, cool. But I think what happens is, there's a lot of firms out there, and people are able to operate under one license in a whole firm. So as for actual certified landscape architects, I don't think there's too many down here, but there's quite a few firms and really high-end specialty firms that, are in the area. I think there's definitely way more contractors. There's probably more designers than there is actual architects, but yeah, I think it's the ones that are out there, the architects, the landscape architects, they're usually pretty expensive. So I feel like I'm trying to offer a competitive price so that, I don't know, I just don't feel right charging people more than I need to or more than I should. So I think that makes me a little bit in higher demand than some of these bigger firms that do charge quite a bit more for services, because people are kind of backed into a corner when they want to build, these mixed use developments that only have a tiny bit of landscape area, and the city comes back and says, "Hey, you need a landscape plan and an irrigation plan for this. Otherwise you can't build." I think people, landscape architects know that, and they can charge basically what they want. So I think there is a high demand for it, but I do also feel like there's enough firms down here that, you know, can handle it.
Sure. So your name is on the business, is the business. So does that mean like anybody that comes to the business is working directly with you?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right now it's just me. Probably going to expand at some point, but my business is still fairly new. It's like I really just picked up in the last year and a half, 2 years. So I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable, everything's organized before I bring in anybody else to experience the chaos with me.
Yeah. What do you think that growth looks like for you? Like if you had to plan ahead, okay, I want to hire. What does that first hire look like?
So it would probably ideally be somebody that needed to get their license, somebody who could operate more as a consultant than an actual employee, just to kind of keep things a little easier. Yeah, and just somebody who is maybe not wanting to be completely part time, whether they're in school, but definitely open to having somebody that I can teach a few things to. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just taking it one day at a time right now.
Yeah.
But I do feel that that's something that's going to happen in the next year or two. So trying to just keep it simple while I can until I need to make it a little more complicated, then I will.
Sure, sure. So I know you have like you've been in the family business and in this industry for a while. So is that where you kind of get some of your business chops? Because I mean, there's one thing to like learn a trade, become an expert at something. It's a whole nother thing to run a business. Like, how is that where you kind of learned how to kind of juggle two different things?
Yeah, so The plan originally after I graduated college was to just come home and help run the business and take over. So my brother and I would do, 50-50 split. And I worked, in that position to kind of prepare to take over for, I think it was like 2.5 years. And I realized that I was trying to drive two cars at once. Like
Mm,
running a construction business and doing my design work was not working. I was not able to give enough attention to either one to do a really good job. So I approached my family and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about just doing design." And they said, "Well, duh, that's what you went to school for. We totally support that." So they've been awesome. And, my brother said, "No problem. I'll do this without you." And I said, "Okay, great." Yeah. So I don't know, just my dad's, it's the only business he's done. I think he started mowing lawns when he was like a teenager, and now he's been in business for 50 plus years. So I definitely think I get some of that business ownership drive from him. And I think, my business is fairly simple. My overhead is pretty low. Like, I don't have to spend a bunch of money on materials. Just gotta, run my office. So it really was not like the hugest risk to say I want to try doing this by myself, especially with so much support from my family and my husband. So I just, yeah, kind of have been learning along the way, but it's definitely not easy, but I like the perks of it more than I like the stress of it, if that makes sense. So
sure. Oh yeah.
it's definitely worth it for me to be in this position. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. And I love to hear like that progress already being so new kind of on your own venture too. So like obviously you have the experience going into it. And I mean, business is business. There's going to be ups and downs. It's never going to be easy. Like it's not a give me every single time, even if you're the best at your craft. The business side can be unpredictable. When you look back at it and think, okay, well, I'm going to go about this myself. Did you have any expectations on, okay, well, this is how I'm going to land my clients?
Yeah, so that was the trickiest part, I would say. And a lot of advice I got from mentors that I have said just expect to be slow your first year. You're not
Mm,
gonna conquer the world, just really hunker down. And yeah, I kind of prepared for that as best as
mhm,
I could. And my dad and brother were really awesome. They said, "Hey, you can fill in working for us when you're really slow." So that kind of made the transition a little bit more of a slope than like a abrupt, okay, you're starting this whole new thing. But yeah, there was really, really slow times the first year, and I'm panicking, thinking, is this gonna work? Is this gonna happen? Am I gonna be successful? I think that's one of my biggest fears in life is to be unsuccessful,
yeah,
which I don't know how
that's
I
you're a
measure
destined
that, but
business
I don't.
owner.
Yeah. So, and then I tried marketing for a little bit, but when you don't have that much money when you're starting out, some of these marketing fees are insane. So
Hmm.
I did a couple things like I made flyers for the neighborhood, just kind of introducing myself. I think I got some wacky clients that way. But I just every day I tried to spend time bettering my business. Like I would work on my website. So those times where I was really slow and discouraged, I tried to put the energy into, okay, let's see how I can do something to make this potentially work. So, and now here I am where I'm much busier. I don't really have time to do any of the marketing anymore because it's all just word of mouth. Yeah, so I'm glad that it's working out.
That's great. That's great. Congratulations on that. So, in terms of your services, do you have minimums? Some people have maximums, but I mean, that'd be really interesting to have a maximum and also a 2-year project because I feel like that just keeps going into
Yeah.
infinity. So, but do you have minimums or at least set minimum expectations?
Yeah, so I used to not, and it was just more about me, having clientele. And
Mhm.
now that I do have more, I can be a little pickier about it. If I feel
Yeah,
like a
great.
job is not a right fit, I can tell them, hey, I think this may be better, for somebody else. But I do now have a little bit of a minimum. So even if it's a small project, I tell them the minimum is going to be like $1,000 or whatever it is. Still feel like it's a pretty fair costs. And then I try to tailor the pricing of my my services to what the project is. So for somebody that needs something done really quickly, that's not too complicated, usually I do an hourly fee. That way it's, they're not spending more money for things that, if it doesn't need to be, my level of detail doesn't need to be as high as possible, then they can, get away with something that's a little bit more in tune with their budget. Or for those big projects, I usually do those hourly once the design is done, because it's, you never know exactly how much the city is going to require from you, so I like to keep those hourly so that it's fair to me and to the clients, because sometimes it could be 10 hours of work, sometimes it could be 2 hours of work. So but then for some of the bigger, like more residential fund projects, those I'll usually just do a lump sum that, they know exactly how much they're going to pay and they know exactly what deliverables they're going to have. And then we can always do an hourly outside of that if they wanted to use me on site for, interacting with the contractor or spotting plant material. So I try to be really flexible with my clients. And if somebody comes to me and says, I need to do this plan. I only have this much money. I can say, okay, well, let's take out, two of the 3D models and we'll see if that's enough for you to feel you understand the project. We can always chat after if you want to, add them in. So I just try to be fair and open because, I like working with people. And yeah, I think it's part of the beauty of having your own business is you do have flexibility with that. So
Do you ever get to a point where you have to like consider saying no to a project because it's like too big or just too like this is going to be a mess?
So not too big, too much of a mess sometimes. Like if there's just some red flags going on, like there's
Mhm.
not enough coordination between the disciplines, or if I'm the third designer that they've had hired, then usually I'm
It's
like,
probably
okay,
a red
those are a
flag.
little red flags. So I
Yeah.
try, now I'm in a position where I just politely decline, or say, hey, I think you may be better suited for another type of design.
Yeah. Do you get any like requests that you're just, "Ugh, I wish people would stop asking for this? Like, do you want to get it on the record so that like, hey, Melissa does not want to do these things and you shouldn't either?
I mean, I'm down to do a lot of stuff, and a lot of people ask me like, how do you not let your personal preferences get in the way? But I think I'm a good designer. If somebody comes to me and says, I want my yard to look super tropical, I say, okay, great, I can make that happen. Is that what I have at my yard? No, not at all. But there's definitely trends. One right now that I'm kind of over is the artificial turf in between the concrete squares. I feel like we've done
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of want to move on from it. Also, logistically, the like turf gets all smushed down. You can't put patio furniture. So I don't know. But there's ebbs and flows with the design. Like right now, I think flagstone is making a huge comeback, breeze blocks, and I'm here for it. I love it. I'm trying to convince people left and right to do it because I think it's such a classic look, and there's a reason that it was really popular back in the day. So yeah, but I try not to let my personal opinions deter anybody. Like if somebody comes to me and they want concrete artificial turf squares, I'd say, okay, that's great. Like we can do that. I just want to disclose to you that these little issues that I see with it. But if they want to do it, then I I make it look good. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So now it's going to go to artificial turf between the flagstone. So
Right. Right. Totally.
yeah, it's I can imagine many people are probably influenced by like what they see on social media, like
Hmm.
probably showing you a phone. Hey, I want this.
Yes.
Is it a lot of that sometimes?
Yeah, a lot of like people's Pinterest boards, which I think is great. The more images that they have of what they want a space to look like, I think that's wonderful. I'm always open to that. We'll just make it more original and more suited for your exact environment. So sometimes I have to tell people that absolutely is not going to work or that's going to look really bad. But yeah, and lately now people are coming with their chat GPT designs that are done, which is interesting because some of them are fine and some of them are not fine. So I kind of have to tell people, that's not done by a real brain, and You can't actually build something that way, so it'll never look how it's going to look in that picture. All the it's skewed, it's, everything's a little off. So that's been a new one that's been funny to me, but yeah, definitely dealing with that a little
Yeah,
more.
so what's been the big shakeup with AI in your space? I'm sure it's always saturated pictures and it's like the
Yeah,
most perfect everything everywhere. That chair has 5 legs. What's going on? And
right.
yeah, so but is it becoming a big problem? Are you like leveraging it? Like how's that look for you?
Yeah, it's so new. It's just kind of been happening with me recently, and I haven't talked to many of my peers about it yet, so I'm not really sure. I just know that it sets people up for false expectations, which is a bummer. Don't like that part of it, but I think the creative human mind, there's no replacement for that. There's no replacement for looking at a site with your eyeballs and saying, okay, this is going to work or this isn't going to work. So I'm not too worried about it, but it just poses another hurdle with clients that, my job is to help them through this process because a lot of people don't know what what it entails. So I just, it's a bummer when there are expectations for something and I have to come in and say, okay, I know, but that's not super realistic. It's gonna have to be a little different than that. So that's really all I'm dealing with it right at the moment. Who knows in the future though? We'll
Sure.
have to see.
Do you find or expect any AI involvement in your space, like your output or anything, whether it's working within the business, whether it's helping with design or anything like that?
Pretty old school, I would say. I don't think it is valuable to me in this instance. I mean, I I could see myself using it for more of like the business end of things,
Mhm.
like if, because I also do all my own accounting, I do everything. So it could potentially help with that, but the actual design creative side of it, I don't think I'll ever rely on that. Aside from now these 3D programs, I have one of them that's basically a plugin for SketchUp that makes the renders just look better. And they do have an AI option on that I've tried a couple times and it just
Messes it
completely
up.
misses. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope, that's not nice try, but I'm just gonna use the one that I did. So
It's
yeah,
job security. It's gotta feel great when you hit, like, "Help me with AI," and it ruins it, so
yeah, or drawing a construction detail. One time just for fun, I put it in and it had like German and different languages and was just so wrong. It was so far from being correct. I was just curious to see what it would do and I was like, "All right, well, you failed at that task." So, I'll keep to doing that myself.
So, one thing I always like to ask, unfortunately, it's at my guest's expense sometimes, is reliving some of the worst experiences. Do you have any stories of like, "Oh, I never want this to happen again," or like, "This was the worst experience," whether it was a client experience or a job experience, everything just went wrong? Do you have anything like that to share?
It's California.
Of
Everybody wants to
course.
sue everybody else.
Gosh, yeah, geez.
It's just bad and I have to have insurance because it's just a standard you have to have as a business owner in this state no matter what you're doing. And more of the nightmares have been involved with the family business because that's when you're talking like really large sums of money. Me, if somebody doesn't pay me, it's just my time basically that I'm out of, which sucks, but yeah, there's been a couple people that have just decided in the middle of the project that they're not going to pay me anymore. And I have to
Yes.
tell them, well, I can't continue doing work for you. And then they get upset that they don't have something to build off of. So I had to kind of adjust my deposit fee and kind of progress payment to just protect myself in the future, which sucks because I want to be able to trust people. And yeah, but I say some of the worst stuff is more involved when like you've built a project and then people just start going crazy about if something goes wrong. If something was built wrong, they kind of go after everybody who was involved in the project. It's just
Really? So,
who
like
can we get?
so the build itself, like, there's been an instance where somebody comes back to you because of someone taking your design and building it a certain way?
Yeah. And it's
Wow.
usually when there's, insurance involved because insurance companies
Yeah.
just they kind of go
Ruthless.
after if your name's on the project, they're coming after you. So
Yeah.
I do have errors and omissions insurance for that reason, but kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And I find I'm pretty good at reading people. I mean, obviously I'm not perfect, but I usually can sense if something's gonna be a little bit of a disaster, so I just stay away. But that doesn't mean I, I'm perfect. Definitely have some some people that are hard to work with, but I just try my best to just get through it and appease them and
Mhm.
make it so that they have something that's usable at the end of the day. So I try to not take it too personally, because we're all individuals and not everybody gets along. So
All right. So, you've obviously been in the industry for quite a while. You've had your own business now for some time. What have you learned? Like, what are you doing better now that you wish you may have known when you first got started?
feel like every year I get better. I learn more, like I said at the beginning, the first design I did was so different than what I'm doing now. And I think it's just important to remember that, business is difficult at times, so try not to stress out too much. But I really am fortunate I can call my dad and ask him a million questions. He's usually experienced it, whether it's business or actually how to build a barbecue structure. So I'm really lucky in that sense that I have, a mentor, somebody who can give me advice of all sorts. But yeah, just mostly happy to be over that hump, that year hump, where now I actually have enough work coming in that I feel like it's gonna work out
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think you're in such a fortunate space, obviously, having the family, having your dad be able to kind of guide you through some of the more physical aspects of things. And what you said, I think, is always so important for everybody, no matter the business, no matter the trade, is having a mentor, having somebody that has experience there, whether it's your dad, whether it's finding somebody else that has experience there. I think that's such an important part of really investing in yourself, investing in the future of whatever you're trying to get into, having that mentor, because obviously like that mentor has years and years of experience, has years and years of failures that maybe you can avoid, or maybe at least if you're running into failures that they've had before, they can help you break through that plateau or glass ceiling that you've kind of run into. So okay, so final question for you. Okay, so you went from kind of the landscaping space, the construction side, the design build side, and you made the leap into the landscape architecture space. If somebody were to consider moving into that space, what would you say to them to get them to say, "Hey, this is the right move for you?"
Yeah, so, not everybody understands the value in having a landscape architect on the project. I think I don't get a lot of jobs because people say, you want how much for a drawing? Why would I pay you when I can just have a contractor that does the design build? But I will say that my expertise, like those tests I had to take, were no joke. I know a lot of weird stuff, and it's just a very, you know, I have a lot of attention to detail. I'm not going to sneaky incorporate my design fee into the construction, which, a lot of design build firms do because they need to get paid for the design. Yeah, but that, I don't win at all. A lot of people don't see the value, and that's okay. And that's probably not a good fit for us. But the people that do see the value in paying for my services, I find them to find it to be so helpful just that their project runs smooth start to finish, that they have a master plan and that they're not, paying for things to be redone down the road. Even if they phase out the project, I can help with that. Yeah, the people who see the value in it definitely have told me that it was valuable and they're glad that they did it that way, but that's not the case for every client. So, and that's okay because not all of us are a great fit, but for the people that do recognize it, it's really nice. And usually we have like a really good working relationship, and I'm super involved and able to help people get ultimately the outdoor space that they really want, and then they're usually happy with it in the end.
Yeah. No, the landscape architecture space and the person handling landscape architecture is so important because, I mean, it's an orchestra when it comes to the actual landscape design and build, and having a great conductor at the head of it that's kind of help organize this and move this forward and have that vision, seed that vision, and getting to the end of it. It's so important because it's not just a matter of laying plants, maybe grading some stuff, putting some hardscaping down. There's a whole plan into it. I can imagine it's probably only harder in California than probably anywhere else in, I would imagine, the world. So I could see why you are so valuable in your space, and is really cool talking to you and kind of learning about your experience. And it sounds just mentally exhausting already, just me trying to understand it. So I'm glad that's more on you. So I would
Yeah,
imagine that people would find a ton of peace of mind hiring you to handle the vision of what a great outdoor space could actually look like. So,
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I can only.
okay, so let's go ahead and do the plug. Who are you?
Okay.
What's your business and who do you serve and what do you do?
My name is Melissa Langer, and I own and operate Melissa Langer Landscape Architecture, which serves Southern California for residential and commercial designs.
All right. Well, Melissa, it's been a pleasure getting a chance to meet you and getting a chance to talk to you. You do amazing stuff. I've taken a look at your work, and it was great finally hearing it from you. Obviously, you're very talented. Even though it's still a newish venture for you, you still have so much experience and so much stuff that you were able to share. And so, I thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom in that experience too. And yeah, thank you for being on here with me. And for anybody that may have gotten anything out of this, and if you know anybody that's even considering moving into that landscape architecture space, I would welcome you to share this episode with them. But yeah, Melissa, it's been a pleasure having you on. And yeah, thank you. And that's basically going to be a wrap for this episode.
All right. Thank you, Matt. That was fun.
Cool. You got it. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And see you on the next one.